Hello, Lionhearts. It's your old pal, Jordan the Lion. Today we are doing the second half of that interview with Bruce Kulick that I told you about. And today he's going to talk about how he used to play with Michael Bolton and his iconic years with Kiss. This will be a fun one. If you didn't get to see the first part, go back and check it out. Daze with Jordan the Lion, it begins right now. How did you get involved in Kiss? Where did that all come about?
So I did actually audition for them when they needed to replace Vinnie Vincent. I had a mustache. And I don't talk about it much, but, you know, Gene said, nice vibrato. Because my brother always told him, Bruce is great. You should consider Bruce, you know. But again, I don't think I went in there very confident and very like, I'm your guy. There are certain things you need to walk into that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and I learned that maybe a little late, but in the end, it did work out for me. Fate was that I should be in Kiss. So what happened was, Paul on occasion, just how my brother knew them, they needed to use session people or other people to come in, okay? It wasn't just my brother that would tell Paul that I was a talented guitar player, and he probably did remember me from that audition, but they went with, they finally got Vinnie Vincent, and then from that point on, he left, and then they went right to this guy named Mark St. John, okay,
Mm-hmm.
who was someone they groomed from a list from Grover Jackson, who's a very famous guitar maker for the Jackson guitars,
Yeah.
which is part of that era that you were talking about,
Yeah.
which is different than the make-up Kiss era, you know.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
Because they had a lot of bad experiences, I know, with Vinnie, when
Mm-hmm.
they were looking for a replacement, or at least when they talked to you, were they open to you being a creative force, or did they have a specific type of player they were looking for?
I do feel that they always see like that role being a certain vibe, and I think they compromised with Vinnie because he was such a good songwriter. They went with him, but I don't think that his look was what they were hoping for, okay? And then when the business fell apart with Vinnie and they realized they can't keep him in the band no matter talent or not, they got this guy Mark and they were molding him, but all of a sudden during the process of the Animalize record, and you know, the band, every album seemed to, you know, shift, you know, in a slightly different version of what Kiss could be, along with the times and along with their own needs and all, which makes the band really fascinating, just like most artists with long careers. You know?
Right. If they put out the same record every year, we wouldn't be talking about any of the records.
Absolutely.
We'd be talking about the first record, and that's it.
And I know that about the Beatles, and I know it about, now that I've delved deeply into Frank Sinatra, which you're aware of, it's similar. So Kiss, here's the Animalize record, okay? All of a sudden, that guy is having some health problem where his hand, he has this arthritic condition where his hand gets swollen. So Paul, I believe it was this guy, Mitch Weissman, who was a good friend with Paul.
Beatlemania.
Yes, exactly. It's funny you know him. And he had Paul's ear then, too, and he said, Bruce, you should call Bruce. And I'm not sure how he knew me. It could have been the Billy Squier record. It could have been maybe Meatloaf, but maybe more likely Blackjack and Michael Bolton. And I knew that that Paul was aware of that because he would do a radio show with Gene, and someone would say, "Who are you listening to?" And I remember one time they brought up Blackjack, which I thought was great.
Which was your band with Michael Bolton before? Do you want to mention it?
Well, before Michael became the pop idol more, and that was a rock band, that I had with Michael, which is terrific. There's some cool stuff up there you'll grab. But we'll talk a little bit about Michael later on because it is connected to Kiss too. But obviously, I became the guy that they called, and it was a really funny story too because the answering machine back then, you know those numbers, that they used to have on your micro cassette. I'm showing my age. I don't know about if you know it, but so I remember coming back. I was just going through some changes in my life where I was back in my parents' house, right? So the little machine, I saw 0. It actually said 20, okay, and Paul and his whoever it was were trying to reach me to bring me into the studio. So I finally checked the machine, and it's hey Paul, it's Paul Stanley. Give me a call, Bruce. I need you to come to the studio. So we speak. He says, "Do you have a guitar with a Floyd Rose? That's the whammy bar thing." I said, "I do. I'll be there." So I go. I wound up playing on a song and a couple of riffs at the end of another song. Okay. And I was just thrilled because I said, wow, this is that opportunity. I get this.
Now, when you went in, did you get to do it how you would do it first? Or did he say, I'm looking for something like this, Bruce? How did he treat you like a studio musician or
both
creative force?
I know he wanted me to be creative, but I kind of knew what he was looking for. Though Paul and I always learned to work great together. There wouldn't have been the Tears Are Falling solo and the Forever solo and things that are identifiable with me if it wasn't for Paul contributing as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't hard. It wasn't like fighting or anything like that.
A smooth fit.
Yeah, and I remember the other things I was doing prior to that session were in the vein he was looking for. I understood that if you're going to play that kind of guitar and what Kiss is, you always have to play to the song anyway, Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
You know that. And that's an instinctual thing that you want to let it flow,
Did playing for the song in the 80s also mean playing for the era of Guitar Hero? Like, was there just this is where the solo goes,
mm-hmm.
every song was going to, was that kind of a mindset?
Well, I will admit that they definitely wanted me to play that role. And I remember when let me finish exactly how I came out of that, and then I'll give you when they actually made me an official member, what their edict was, okay? But let me set it up with the fact that, all right, I do the job, right? He's happy. Obviously, he wouldn't have asked me to do the second song if a couple of riffs there if he wasn't. But he just says, don't cut your hair. And it was about shoulder length. By that time, I didn't have the mustache or anything, so I didn't look like a fruit salesman, like Gene said. And next thing I know, I get a call about 6 weeks later that they need me to come to accompany them. They'd like me to be the guitar player to fill in for Mark because of his illness. I would go to Europe for 2 weeks, possibly 6, and all of a sudden I'm going to be on tour with them.
Whoa!
So right, and that was big, And at that point I felt like I hit the lottery, where I may only be in Kiss for 2 weeks or 6 weeks, and then of course it turned into 12 years. But that was pretty amazing. So anyway, there I am. I complete the entire 6-week European tour, okay, which I had the time of my life, okay. I remember Eric Carr, who already had the gig 4 years, sometimes would complain, you know what I mean? And I go like, shut up, are you kidding me? Kind of thing. But, 4 years into my Kiss gig, I understood more how, one of the members can complain.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? Because it's a little different. But when you walk into that situation and have adoring fans and it's first class everything, and you're playing terrific music with some really talented professional people, it doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah.
Okay? Right. So I enjoy looking back now. There was times when I was always like, huh, that was me, and now I really welcome it and I study it. So now it's time to tour in America. But Mark is better. Contractually, they got to figure maybe Mark should be, back in the band, even though they were very happy with me.
Was it a big deal in those times? Like, were people hanging on who was all the 4 members of each band? Would they have, was it a bigger deal that Gene and Paul were there, or would they have known because they had just replaced Vinny?
I think there was a lot of confusion because we didn't share information back then the same way.
Right.
There was always confusion as to who was the lead guitar player.
Okay.
So I was kind of like, people didn't know who they were seeing, but it didn't matter because it was Gene and Paul and it was Kiss. Eric Carr was already consistent from 1980, so that's good. It's now late 84, but we're both on tour and they're going to try out Mark. How weird is that? Okay?
Like you're fighting for the job almost.
But I was in this real good zone, like, I'm not going to do anything bad. We'll jam backstage and, just think really positively. And I already knew I had the home team advantage, okay? I just did. Because they liked what I was doing. I knew from many months earlier when he was first announced, I looked at a magazine and said, wrong. That is wrong. He's not the right guy for this band. It was the strongest instinct in my soul. I just looked and said, no. Why did I do that? It wasn't jealousy. It was something.
Did you ever foresee yourself as being a member of that band?
No, I didn't. But I just knew that was wrong. But then when I got that, I foresaw myself. And not only that, I mean, I saw what an opportunity it was. But let's face it, it would have to be my musicianship and my professionalism that would secure the gig. Right? And they tried Mark. He tried a little too hard, I feel. He certainly was a talented guy, though I didn't feel like his guitar playing was as versatile or as appropriate for Kiss, but nothing to take away from his talent as a musician. So, and then, which was another reason why I thought he was wrong. It wasn't about, I saw his influences, and I'm like, that doesn't work in Kiss.
Yeah.
He was much more into like some of the fusion guitar players. And Kiss, you better mention Jimmy Page, Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin kind of, things.
Yeah, rock and roll. Wow.
Exactly. So in the end, they sent him home, and that's when I get the call from Paul, and I can picture it as clear as me sitting here. I pick up the phone. So we're sending Mark home. You're the guitar player, and look, it's, what the music is now. I need you to be as competitive and flashy and as rock star hero guitar playing, which is what you mentioned, as possible. Now that's a way different edict to me for my job as compared to what Tommy Thayer got when he joined the band.
I feel like that's why I kind of like started that by mentioning you have a unique position where, nothing against Eric or Tommy or anything, but just because they wear the makeup, they get an unfair criticism from certain fans. You never were in that position. You were solely in a time where they were doing something completely different. It's got to be kind of cool to have the fans acknowledge you for all those hooky songs. I mean, I don't know how else to say it, because those were some of the catchiest times of their career, I feel like.
I love representing my era. I love the era. I love that it's unique. I love that they don't really delve into it much because it doesn't fit the makeup narrative. And there's nothing wrong with that. I certainly understand. Like, I don't know if it's appropriate for them in full makeup during one of those shows to do Forever or to do Tears of... They do Tears of Falling sometimes, but to do, things from Revenge, or... They only dabble in a few, Some of it, I don't know how it fits them, but they also have a tremendous catalog of makeup songs.
Yeah, look how long they've been doing it.
Right. So, my guitar role... Look, they were still big shoes from the Ace Frehley, era. But no, I didn't have to emulate him. I didn't have to imitate him. Although I did take pleasure in some of the songs. I really tried to nail his solos because I loved them.
I'm going to ask you that.
And then there were other solos that they didn't tell me to do it exact, and I didn't think, or it was an extended solo like Love Gun. The band live would do double solo. So I didn't do the one that Ace is for. I got to play what I want to play. But I've always had the role of, if I'm going to do someone else's stuff, I'm respectful of the signature riffs, but then I make it my own. That's the important thing. And I think that that's what's made me also valuable to many bands, is that I'm not going to, I could be me, but I can also be fit in because I'm representing what's in the realm of appropriateness for that. Same thing for Grand Funk and other groups that I've worked with.
Now, what were your favorite songs that you did during that Kiss era? What stands out? Maybe solos or maybe even performances?
Well, certainly, each new album that we would tour for did have some key songs that were fabulous, like A Tears Are Falling, or The Hide Your Heart, or even Forever, which we did during the show, Unholy and God Gave, certain tours we did more of the album, and others we did less. It was always a little bit odd how all that came together, but I have to admit I did love some of the vintage ones, Detroit Rock City, to when we introduced 100,000 Years. I thought that was great. But there's the material for this band, War Machine, God of Thunder. It's just terrific stuff.
Just fun songs.
Oh yeah, everyone. And the guitar stuff is much more intricate than some, musicianship people may think,
Yeah.
So I do feel very blessed that gig really did fit my my guitar knowledge. And in fact, I was able to maybe challenge it and add new elements to Kiss that maybe probably other guitar players couldn't have.
Now, you mentioned that Paul had been a fan of the band that you did with Michael Bolton. Now, do you want to talk about how that all is intertwined in your history? And most people, I've heard the records that they're great. You just wouldn't, I guess when a man loves a woman, that singer is not what you would would correlate.
Michael really
rock
matured.
Music.
Yeah, when he did his solo career, he really matured. I mean, there was a little while where he had a solo career as Michael Bolton. Okay, that's when he changed the spelling. Blackjack has below 10. Okay, and anyway, it was he was an East Coast guy from Connecticut, the New Haven area. My brother and I did gigs with him, and then he did a demo tape with Johnny Winters as the lead guitar player.
Whoa!
He shopped it, got some big business, record business people interested. Did not want him to be a solo artist. Okay, they wanted it to be a band. Okay, so now he reached out to initially my brother and I, and Bob didn't like some of the business stuff, so he wasn't included. I did, because to me any opportunity was going to be great.
Yeah, and you never know where it'll go.
Exactly. So all of a sudden, we find a terrific bass player, Jimmy Haslip, who's a Grammy award-winning guy from his fusion band. Sandy Gennaro, dear friend of mine, great drummer, has played with, Cyndi Lauper and lots of other people. And then we had a big record deal produced by Tom Dowd, very famous, And I really I'm still tight with Michael. He's still like a brother of mine. But we went through a lot of stuff. I mean, because think of the pressure. We get this big record deal on Polydor. That was Polydor.
Yeah.
And we did pretty good on the first record, like around 100,000 albums. That was a disaster for them. If it didn't go gold, we were in...
Were they pushing it, you said? They were...
Yeah, but what happened was, and I think I mentioned it with the Meatloaf story, if you don't get that radio reaction, meaning you put something out on the radio and the phones go crazy, it didn't connect quite the same way. And I think we were good, but we weren't good enough. And I think in '79, it was the biggest album when ours came out, Breakfast in America, Supertramp.
Really? Okay. Yeah.
Now we're doing a kind of bluesy rock and roll thing.
Right.
I mean, I was hoping we'd be like a Bad Company, American Bad Company, which, by the way, the big business guy behind us was involved with Led Zeppelin and Bad Company. Not their manager, but their publisher, administrator, very famous attorney, really, really powerful. So anyway, we did 2 records. By the second album, people were getting fired at the label, so it was a disaster. Although that's where Kanye West found the song. Okay, can't complain.
Crazy enough, yeah. And you now have lived on both sides, where you saw a record that got a push and was really successful, and now you live through seeing, that it wasn't getting the same.
Right, and we disbanded, and then Michael rethought. He started writing more seriously and started rethinking himself as a solo artist. That was still rock, and I got involved with that as well. And I remember we did MTV pushed some of his Fool's Game. So now I'm touring with Michael, because of course he went to me.
Yeah.
And here's a really amazing story that connects to Grand Funk. So Michael gets, as Michael Bolton, 3 weeks on the road opening for Bob Seger, okay, which is a wonderful opportunity. Who's the drummer? Don Brewer, because Don used to play sometimes in the Silver Bullet Band for Seger. Great gig. And Don is just an amazing drummer. Eric Singer loves him, everybody, I mean, he's been my boss for 20 years now, but he's just a terrific drummer. Okay?
Yeah.
So there I am, Michael and I were on tour. We had our songs, and all of a sudden, we hear from Seger's people that unless you guys do a few more originals, because Michael was known for some covers, okay, from his club days. And his first big hit was a cover, When a Man Loves a Woman. And Seger was like, that ain't going to fly, dude. Not going to happen. So now we're having a meeting, like, what the hell do we do? And I go, Michael, Blackjack. Let's do Blackjack songs. Okay. And it was a big thumbs up from
Same
Seger.
style, or...
Well, no, we did the songs from his previous band.
I know, but did he keep, like, Sandy and some of the other members, or was it just you and you guys were all creating it with the new band?
I was the only other person from Blackjack. But the point is we were now incorporating the Blackjack album songs, and Seger loved it. And then when Don Brewer, years later, after Grand Funk, Mark Farner went his way, and Mel and Don weren't sure what to do. And then when they had the desire to, do Grand Funk Mach 2, whatever you want to call it, I was on the short list because Don knew me, what I mean? And he knew that I was versatile, and it's just funny. You never know how something is going to interconnect years later with your gig. You know?
Totally. And like you said, Blackjack, even though maybe not as successful as you wanted, you do have a Kanye West
yes
honoration up on the wall.
Jay-Z also did something.
Do you want to talk about...
That's a crazier story.
Yeah, but that's what's so cool is that some people think, oh, you know, once you hit a certain point, maybe the radio's not going to play your songs anymore. Your songs have had a whole new life with a whole new style of music, and that's possible today.
That's the beauty about putting out music, because you never know what's going to happen. I used to be that way about the band Union that I had after Kiss.
With Corabi?
With John Corabi.
Right.
And I always felt like we never got the right shot, but the only thing that mattered was I loved every song we put on every album, and whatever. And maybe one day something magical will happen with one of those. As long as I'm proud of it, you know, it's okay. But the connection with Bolton years later with Kiss is real important. So now Michael, he's Bolton and he's rock, but then he becomes, and he has the cover song, and now he wins a Grammy, and we kept in touch. I remember sending him flowers to the Sunset Marquee when he won, you know, and so proud of him, and he becomes a big star. But, you know, he's a great songwriter, you know, because he was working with a lot of big artists. So now he approaches me. He was happy I was in Kiss. And in fact, I'll tell you another funny story. Michael tells it in his book. When we were working with Tom Dowd on the Blackjack, the first album, I remember getting, you know, you're experimenting in the studio with the guitar sounds and whatever. And the next thing I know, Tom is like, I don't like that. What do you think, you're a guitar player in Kiss? That's what he said. Obviously, it probably had too much distortion or something.
Yeah.
But did he know something I didn't know?
I know,
yet,
a little
right?
prophetic.
Yeah. Anyway, but there's always like crazy things like that in life. And I remember Michael told that story. He thought it was funny. Anyway, so now, of course, Michael's like, hey, do you think Paul Stanley would write something with me? I go like, absolutely. You know what I mean? Get together, because power ballads were really important.
Mm-hmm. And
there you have the song Forever, which is just such a hugely iconic song from my years of Kiss. The acoustic solo, the fact that it's a love song. Gene pimps it out that it's part of a casket forever, you know, because he's the merchandise whiz. So really huge hit for Michael, and I remember Michael was performing it as well.
Yeah.
You know? So I like that I was like kind of like the link, you know, between the two of them about that. That's always fun.
And you have been performing your whole life, even till now. Do you have a plan? Is there anything inside of you that says, Bruce, do you really want to keep, like, is there a love in music burning out in you at all, or does it still consistently stay?
I love it. I admire Tony Bennett. I think when even like when I watched the Glenn Campbell news, when I realized he could still tour when he's dealing with Alzheimer's and stuff like that. No, I don't want to stop playing ever.
And I've noticed you adapt. You and Lisa post your Christmas song, and I immediately texted you and said I was impressed with how well you did a single arrangement for those type of songs. I'd never seen you play anything like that.
Those are some of the hardest things I do, but we do a killer Somewhere Over the Rainbow too, and I had to make an arrangement that would work for just my wife and I. You know, so no, the love of music is strong. I mean, to be successful though, and to continue the revenue stream, I have to do a lot of different things. In some ways, I really wish all I needed to do or had to do was just be creative and play and be in my studio or something. But there's many times I have to spend time like looking at the merchandise and engaging with the fans and doing signing events and everything. And God bless all that.
Yeah, and say it's the blessing of being in one of a couple of the most famous acts of all time.
No, I'm very fortunate with that. And now, in the current situation of a pandemic and live gigs not happening,
gives you all the time to do it.
Yeah, so I've learned more in this last year, and I've embraced more about my career and my connections even stronger with my fans and my output of what I could do with my wife. I did a couple of virtual events in December. It's been fascinating. So music. Obviously, there's the business that swirls around it that you have to manage. That's all related. Or like I like to say, I'm building the brand. But it's all based on the fact that I love guitar, I love what I do, I love what I've done, and I love sharing it. I think there are many artists that, I mean, I'm blessed that I can explain it all.
Yeah.
Hopefully you're enjoying me.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
And I know that I've had a fascinating life, though. There's a big part of me that's super neurotic, that if I didn't have a loving wife, I don't know if I could get out of bed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, that's just me. You know, I mean, knowing even that I'm going to sit down with you, there's a stress of, oh, I hope it goes well. Well, we have everything perfect for Jordan. You know, can we really accomplish all that I have to share? And you know what that comes from, Jordan? That's my strive for perfection.
I was going to say, that's just normal wanting to do a great job at what you do.
And that pressure, but that drives you. I do remember in the years when I couldn't make sense of the music business or even my parents, and I had to talk to a therapist to keep me on track, and we would talk about being neurotic. They were like, so many great artists that you love. I remember her telling me, they're so similar.
Mm-hmm.
This is part of the process of your talent. Okay.
Yeah.
So acknowledge it, embrace it, and don't let it consume you. This is how you become what you are. The nervousness. Okay. I'll never forget reading it in Tony Bennett's book, and then meeting him on a plane, and I get the chance to share the story with him. I did get introduced with him by Paul Stanley, which was great, so I was able to mention that. But I remember the story that in his book, I have no idea why I picked up his paperback and I'm reading it, you know, but years ago I read it, and I remember he had to ask Frank Sinatra, I'm so nervous before I go on stage. And Frank just telling him, that's totally normal.
Yeah.
If you weren't nervous, you didn't care.
Yeah.
So you should be nervous, you know. And I own that. When I read that, and then to think years later, you know, to meet Tony and actually tell him that, and he loved that I read the book and everything. And I have to tell that to a lot of people too. If you're not nervous before you're doing those things, maybe you don't care, you know, and you should. Okay?
And I was actually going to end it by saying, what advice would you have for someone, you know, wanting to have a career in music? But I think that's the answer, is like, you just have to do it and want to do it. And
yes. Well, your passion should be strong. You should also take all those things you love and then make them your own. Mm-hmm. You know, you know, like with the tragic loss of Eddie Van Halen last year on the guitar community, with such a huge presence he had, and that was part of my era for Kiss. You know,
mm-hmm.
I had to learn all those tricks. You know, and I did quite a few interviews about it with other great people. It was really great to honor Eddie and his influence. But you know, the guy who only plays that, you're not going to make it. You need to do that, but then make it your own and take all your influences and be your own unique voice. So you do have to believe in yourself. You should be nervous. You should always question. You should always doubt. You should always strive, but not to the point where you can't get in the starting.
Right.
You got to get on the field. There are terrific musicians that we'll never hear of because they're too screwy in the brain to get out of their home. You know what I mean? They don't know how to do it. Now, with the internet the way it is now, and social media and you know, just the way we could share music, that's why you're seeing it. Now it doesn't matter where you live. You mentioned to me earlier, when I grew up in the 60s and all, being in New York was the right place. But now it doesn't matter where you are. You could be on an island in the middle of nowhere, and you could be the next big star winning all the Grammys. Doesn't matter, because you make that, you could record on your laptop even, and you know there are artists who have done this, new artists, and the next thing you know, they just plug into whatever that is, that's magic in them, and people love it, and they're attracted to it, and they want more, and they don't even have a record deal now, and they become a star. Yeah. You know, and then they become part of the machine, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which you have to, because it's a business. But,
or maybe, who knows, the way things are going now, you can kind of do your own thing and not be part of the machine in a small, like YouTube has opened up a way for people just to be their own entity and forego all that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Bruce.
Your success is people love like what
I
you
wouldn't
do,
be here if I wouldn't have started on my own and did it every day and everything. So thank you for inviting us into your house, and we're going to be back in the future to see all the great memorabilia you have here.
This is wonderful. I have plenty to show you.